Hello friends, welcome to the 12th part on the Battle of Raichur series. So from this part onwards, we'll be looking at the battle proper, or the Raichur war. War is the correct word, and the events that led to that war. So we have till now formed a background of what the political and military situation was in the 16th century. So from this part onwards, we'll have a look at the very interesting events that led to the war. So just before we kind of delve into the war, I'll just show you. Okay, there we go. So we'll just define some things first. Now you must be thinking, what is this guy? He kind of brings in all these random topics into what is a historical presentation. But please bear with me, and this will become very clear in a couple of slides. So some of you might be aware, what is a false flag operation. So false flag operation has been defined as an act committed with the intent of disguising the actual source of responsibility and pinning the blame on another party. So bluntly put, you stab someone and then you cry the victim, and then obviously use that excuse to attack the other person or the other country. And this this, I think it's called a destroyer or a frigate. I think it's a destroyer. So destroyer you see in the black and white photograph is USS Maddox. So USS Maddox is quite famous because there was something called the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1965. So the incident basically was, it ran over a couple of days or 2 or 3 days. This destroyer was supposedly attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats, and on the first day there was a skirmish, and on the second day there was another attack. Second or third day there was another attack, and the second attack was kind of the red flag for the US. So it was like, no, this, we are now going to go all out into the Vietnam War. We are going to start fighting as North Vietnam, so we are going to land our troops in South Vietnam. But later it turned out that there was no second attack, so it was a completely made up story. And this is what a false flag operation is. It's a completely fake provocation, and it's just an excuse to attack the other country. And another famous example is, the weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, which was used as an excuse in 2003 to attack Iraq and destroy that country completely. So Saddam Hussein was a dictator, but all said and done, he was a brave person, and he made sure that the large number of Iraqis, there are different tribes, there are Shia, Sunnis, so a lot of conflicts between them as well. They kind of stayed united, and the country was prosperous and stable, and all that went for a toss. So within a couple of years, the country was completely destroyed, and a large number of its gold reserves were carted away by the US. So that's a false flag operation. And how is this relevant to 16th century Vijayanagar and the Deccan Sultanates? We'll find out. So let's have a look. Okay, so just to give a background, so I'll be looking at my notes as well. So please don't mind if I kind of start looking down, because it's difficult for me now to remember everything. So Salva Narasimha, who was the ruler of Vijayanagar from 1485 to 1491 CE, so his last wish was to capture Raichur. Now Raichur is a very strategic fort, and this is a picture of one of the citadels on top of that Raichur hill. So I'll show you a 3D graphic of the landscape in the next part. But basically the entire landscape is completely flat except for this massive rock-like hill which towers over the landscape, and it's a doab, so it's between two rivers, so very critical and crucial, both in terms of strategic, militarily, and economic terms as well. So there used to be a lot of competition and back and forth between first the Bahmani Sultanate and the Karnataka or the Vijanagara Empire. And afterwards, once the Bahmani split up in the early 1500s, so you had this competition between Bijapur, which was the main kind of contestant against Vijayanagar after that. And the other Deccan Sultans kind of stepped in from time to time, but it was mostly Bijapur under the Adil Shahs who were fighting with Vijayanagar for Raichur, and the fort kept changing hands time after time. So now Nunes, who is one of the Portuguese chroniclers and one of the eyewitness to the events, says that there was a peace treaty of 40 years between Bijapur and Vijayanagar, which seems to be very doubtful, because they never had any kind of peace for that long. And he also says that Krishnadevaraya wanted to invade Raichur, but Timmarasu, who was his prime minister, was against it, and his advisors were against it as well. And Timmarasu um, specifically advised, and he kind of gave an idea as well, that a lot of the debtors and landlords who owed money to Vijayanagara and Krishnadevaraya had fled to seek protection in Bijapur, because they knew that Vijayanagara was not going to be able to get the money back. So this kind of set the wheels in motion, as per Nunes, in Krishnadevaraya's mind, of how to kind of get money back, or how to grab Raichur back, not get money back, grab Raichur back from Bijapur. So now we come to the false flag operation. So this is the Syed Mercar incident. So Mercar is the Portuguese corruption of the word. So I don't know if it's Syed Maraikar, or the original word obviously would be something different. So Syed, now you might be aware that in especially in Muslim society, so Sayyids are considered to be descendants of Prophet Muhammad. So they have a higher place in the Muslim hierarchy compared to others. And the Deccan Sultanates, for most part were ruled by converts. Even the Nizams, Shahs, the Qutub Shahs, etc., by converts, or Persian invaders. So they prioritized Arabs first. So there was this pecking hierarchy. So Arab Muslims first, then you had the Persians, then the Turks, and finally the local converts, which are known as the Deccanese. And this was the pattern throughout India, even in times of the Delhi Sultanate. So any XYZ abracadabra used to come from Arabia saying I am this, I am that, he used to be automatically given some kind of high position, high role, or a stipend or something. And if he wanted to stay back, he would obviously be given lands and jagirdaris and all that kind of stuff. If he was going back to Arabia, he would be given a lot of money, which was stolen from India in the first place. And the Syed Maraikar, now as per Nunes and Barros, so Barros was another Portuguese chronicler. So Barros says that the Syed Mercar incident was a trap laid by Krishnadevaraya to provoke Adil Shah to come on the battlefield. So, and Barros very clearly says that Syed Mercar was a very loyal and a confidant of Krishnadevaraya for many years, because Krishnadevaraya used to enter Syed Mercar with a lot of money to buy horses from the Portuguese, because the Portuguese had control of the island of Goa. So this is a late 16th century kind of print, and you can see this is the island of Goa. So initially the Portuguese only had control of the island of Goa. Then obviously after the Raichur war, because of an understanding with Vijayanagar, with Krishnadevaraya, they got control of the parts of the mainland of Goa as well. So initially their dominion was quite limited. And they had captured the horse trade from the Arabs, because there were big naval battles from 1500 to 1520s, early 1520s, and the Portuguese had finally gained control. They were pirates essentially, just like the English were later on. So they had gained control of the horse trade, and Krishnadevaraya and Vijayanagar had favorable terms and treaties. There wasn't a formal treaty, but they had very favorable terms, where they used to kind of have a wink-wink, kind of understanding. So Syed Mercar was a trusted confidant, and he was given 40,000 parados. So parados was the currency. I am assuming it was gold coins, or panams, or the Vijayanagar currency. So in today's terms, I'm not sure exactly what it is. Again, if somebody is aware how that conversion works, please put it in the comments. And I'll also ask a couple of scholars I know. So we can understand that this was a huge sum of money, because it was not like they were buying 50 or 100 horses. This was thousands and thousands of horses for the army. So Syed Mercar was entrusted with 40,000 parados and sent to Goa. But on the way he went AWOL, so he absconded, and he resurfaced in Bijapur, and he sought shelter from the Adil Shah. So let me see, which Adil Shah was it? Was it, I think, yeah, it was Ali Adil Shah, and yeah, I think it was Ali Adil Shah. Anyway, so he resurfaced in Bijapur, and obviously he had a lot of money, and he was a Syed. So Adil Shah gave him shelter, and just because he was Syed, he was given the Thanadari of Dabul, which is again a place on the Goa coast. And the interesting thing is, he again disappeared on the way to Dabul, so he was never heard from again. But what Krishnadevaraya did was, as soon as the news came that Syed Mercar had absconded with the money and resurfaced in Bijapur, he sent a demand to Adil Shah saying, look, you are sheltering this fugitive with my money, so you either hand him back or we will meet on the battlefield. Adil Shah obviously said, no, nothing doing, I'm not going to hand him back. So you can go to hell if you want. So this became the reason or the excuse to start the march on to Raichur. And Krishnadevaraya was a very astute statesman. So it was not like simply you have that excuse and you go to battle. You also need to kind of neutralize, prospective allies. So in this case, we'll just have a look at the situation. So this was the situation. Again, a map I made long time back, not very accurate, but it gives you an idea. So you had different sultanates. So you had the Vijayanagara Empire. The Kerala Calicut was always independent, and then you had the Bijapur Sultanate. You had this little kesari or saffron patch here, which is Goa, probably exaggerated over here, very small part. You had Bijapur Sultanate, you had Ahmednagar, you had Berar, you had Bidar, and you had Golconda, and on this you had Gajapatis. Now the Gajapatis were not the allies of the Sultanates, so they were not in the question right now. And Vijayanagar Krishnadevaraya had actually fought a big war against the Gajapatis. So I'll have a different video series on the Orissa campaign, and he had pretty much effectively neutralized the Gajapatis as well. So the people who are going to, so Raichur Doab is somewhere around this point. So what Krishnadevaraya did was he sent messengers to Ahmednagar, Berar, Bidar and Golconda and said, look, I have been wronged by Adil Shah. He should have given or handed over Syed Mercar back with the money. He's not ready to do that. So obviously I'm in the right, he's in the wrong. So you let me know clearly what you are going to do. So are you going to attack, or are you going to stay neutral, or are you going to help the Bijapur Sultanate? Now in these sultanates, so Nunes has got a very interesting sentence here in describing the relation between the sultanates. So he says Adil Shah was hated by them all as being a more powerful chief than they. And he says further, there is little faith amongst the Moors. So the Portuguese used to refer to the Muslims as Moors. For there is little faith amongst the Moors, and they bite one another like dogs, and like to see one another destroyed. Now, because Adil Shah was the most powerful among all the sultanates, so obviously they kind of envied him. They had no love lost for the Hindus of Karnataka Samrajya or the Vijayanagara Empire. But after that, they didn't have a lot of attachment to Bijapur either. So most of the sultanates, they either didn't send reply or they clearly said we are not going to step in. So Krishnaraya sent messengers to Imad Shah of Berar, Barit Shah of Bidar, Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar, and Qutbul Mulk of Golconda. But Ahmednagar and Bijapur were linked matrimonially. So Adil Shah's sister Maryam was married to Burhan Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar. So Burhan Nizam Shah did not get along with Adil Shah, and there was something called the Solapur incident. So basically, one of Adil Shah's commanders, his name, it kind of escapes me. He had basically kind of gone to negotiate this marriage, and he had on his own promised Solapur to Burhan Nizam Shah. But Adil Shah, when he came to know of this, was furious, and he had no intention of handing over Solapur to Burhan Nizam Shah. So this led to some bickering, but it was kind of papered over, and Maryam was married to Burhan Nizam Shah. So Burhan Nizam Shah again had no love lost for Adil Shah, but he sent a contingent of troops to kind of help him against Vijayanagar. But by and large, everybody stayed out of this war. And another interesting thing is, so Imad Shah of Berar and Barit Shah of Bidar were Sunnis, whereas Qutbul Mulk and Burhan Nizam Shah were Shia. Okay, and Adil Shah was also a Shia. So you had Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda, which was Shia sultanates, and Bidar and Berar were Sunni. But Qutub Shah also had an axe to grind against Bijapur. So none of them, despite being Shias or same faith, got along together. Okay. So this was kind of the situation, and this is what I meant, when I introduced the concept of the false flag. Okay, so next part we will move onwards to Raichur, and we will see kind of the actual battle preparations and how the actual battle came to pass. And we'll also have a look at the controversy on the dates in the last part probably. So the reference for this is a study by Orugundi Ramachandraya. This was his PhD thesis, so which was published as a book called known as Studies on Krishnadevaraya of Vijayanagara, and the Raichur campaign is covered in quite some detail here, and he also discusses the controversy regarding the dates. So friends, this is all for this time. I hope you have liked this, and I have moved from that headset kind of microphone to a lapel one. So let me know if the volume is good and if it's better than that. So thank you for watching. Please do remember to share, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.